I'm Lori Arshansky, Austin's mom, and I wanted to tell you what it was like having Austin for a kid. Well, first of all, he was a very special kid. He did have learning problems. He had ADHD, as you know, and he always said he put the H in ADHD. But I didn't think he was that hyperactive because he had another friend that was even more off the wall than he was. But he would do things like go in the backyard for hours playing in the creek, and called that the clay factory. And he also loved to ride his bike. He learned how to sail when he was quite young. Everybody knows that. And since school was so hard and challenging, and it really, really sat on him to get him to learn, he had to go to camp in the summer to let his hair down. And that was where I think he was really influenced by nature. And he wanted to climb a tree, and I went with him and took pictures. It was about 40 feet up. I can't believe I did that. It might have been dangerous. But he made it down because, as you know, Austin really liked to push his comfort zone. And he liked to push everyone else's too. And as he got older, we went on a commando hike at Sharon Woods. And we went into the ravine area, which was closed because it was unsafe. And we walked until we got lost. We were told to get off of somebody's property because we were trespassing. And we hitchhiked home because we were so far away. But afterwards, I really felt confident, and that was when I could see that he had leadership skills. Another thing I remember was when he took his Jeep out off-roading and he got stuck, and he gave me a call at 11 o'clock and he said, "Mom, will you call Mr. Donatel? And I'm afraid to call Dad." So I called the counselor who towed him out of where he was stuck from. And I never told Charlie. I wonder if he ever told him. Who knows? Anyway, I loved having him for a kid. I also took him on a spelunking trip when he was about 12. And he loved that, and he started doing that at camp and learning, going places. And rock climbing, we went to somewhere with rocks and stuff. It was great. And what else did I want to tell you about? Oh, one of the things when he was about 12 and I met my husband, Steve, and I'm a little older than Steve, and he said to me, "Mom, I think you should marry Steve because you'll die at the same time." And I listened to him, and that was a very, very good decision.
Here are several pictures of Austin when he was young. He was on a sailboat from a very young age. We both were, but he really embraced becoming a sailor more than I did. This picture kind of shows when we were kids, we spent a lot of time in the bike shop, and those Oakley sunglasses were definitely something that we sold and he wore to bike races. When he was young, he was very into trains. There's lots of pictures of him with trains, and I remember going places to see trains, and that's something that's been fun with my kids as they were all into trains too. And over here are some more pictures of just general Austin's personality and being silly. And we had a good time together when we were little, and this really kind of shows that. This shows our family farm in Hillsboro, Ohio, and Uncle Paul. And we used to go there in the summer and see the cattle, and I have very good memories of playing in this barn of corn that we could swim in and slide down, and we probably got disgusting, but we didn't care, and we loved it. And And that is him with a little dog too. And then these are some pictures of Camp Pawlepeck. This may have been his first year. I'm not sure. I think he was pretty young in these. Just the beginning of his great experience there and love of nature. Along those notes, I found a book of poems he made in elementary school, maybe 4th grade. And this one it's a Dear Diary, but it's written like he's a Native American, and his name is Swift Wind, and it talks about things he did that day. And then this poem, which I thought was kind of funny. Wright, Austin, never been to Boston. He likes to take hikes. So points for rhyming.
Hi there, this is Shauna, one of Austin's Cleveland cousins. So we grew up about 4 or 5 hours away from each other, and he's about 4 years older than me. So, but I definitely have lots of fond memories of getting together with our Cincinnati family, and always really looking forward to spending time with cousins Ashley and Austin. And then him especially being so fun, so funny, and always feeling included, even being a few years younger and maybe not having as much in common. So I always think of those memories and that family time together fondly, and especially the fun that we had with him.
Hi, I'm Natalie, Zena Baird and Sam Baird's daughter. A little memory or shared memory I had with Austin is trailing back to when I was 9 and my brother was 8, and we traveled to South Padre Island. Wow, the memories that we shared. I remember him and he babysitted my brother and I, and he was just a wonderful person and got along great with everybody.
Hello everybody from Fairbanks, Alaska. Gosh, I don't even know where to start. My favorite quote, I think, Austin used to say that life's a journey, not a destination. And I gotta say, I don't think I'd be here where I am living the life that I live if I didn't try to embody that on a daily basis. He always wanted us to follow our passions and get outside and get in touch with nature and get in touch with ourselves, which reminds me of one of my favorite memories of him growing up. You know, when you have siblings, there is no such thing as personal space. And Austin took advantage of that anytime he felt that I was being too secluded in my room and needed fresh air. And there was one time in particular he was not having it when I said I didn't want to come out and go for a walk around the house and the woods with everybody, and he got into my room and grabbed me by the leg and pulled me kicking and screaming up the stairs, out the front door, shut the front door, locked it. And I knew at that point there was no way I was getting back inside. That's combination would have taken too long and he would have snatched me up again. So just had to go out in the woods and go for a hike with everybody. So yeah, that inspiration, I try to carry that anytime I feel a little stuck. It's, you know, what would Austin do? Where am I investing my energy? Where am I stuck? How am I moving? And I mean, I've just every year's gotten better and better as far as quality of life and quality of relationships. So thank you, Austin. And I love you and miss you.
Hello, I'm Steve Arshansky, Austin's stepfather. I wanted to relate to you a story about him that I remember. Let's see, Austin was about maybe 13 or 14, and he wanted to buy this go-kart. And Lori had previously set up a checking account for him with money that he had saved himself. So I remember he actually wrote a check for this go-kart himself, and he was very proud of it. And it came over to our house originally, and I remember him riding around the neighborhood, but it really wasn't a good place for it. So it eventually moved over to his dad's house, where they had more a big driveway he could run it in. And the other kids all wanted to ride it as well, my 3 kids as well as Dee's kids. And I remember Austin said, no, you need to have training. You need a driver's license to do this. So he then set up a program to help train all of the kids, his step siblings, on how to ride the go-kart, and give them driver's licenses for them.
Austin was my camper at Camp Palawopak, and he loved to fish a little too much. And our saying was, if you give a man a fish, he can eat for a day. But if you teach a man to fish, he will have to take Austin. And Austin and I spent a lot of time in a canoe on the lake at Camp Palawopak, and it was great fun for me, and he lives in my heart. And thank you for doing this.
Hi, I'm Meredith, and this is Ren. Austin used to call me Mare. Does that startle you, Rennie? And I'm sitting at my house in front of this wonderful Japanese maple that when we first looked at this house made me think of Austin, and it's perfectly behind the front door, and I get to see it and think of him often. Somebody's hungry. And I really wish that Ren could meet Austin and see this awesome place that we live. I think of him all the time, especially when I take dips in cold water. Austin always said, you gotta go 3 times. So I always dunk myself under 3 times. And think of him when I go biking and hiking on the trails by myself out here. Would love it, and just think of him with Ren, and wish that my little tired boy here got to hear Austin say, hi, good morning, wake up, like that incredibly annoying Mickey Mouse clock that he had. So many amazing memories of Austin at camp, and just his love. I feel it, and I miss him terribly, and I look forward to gathering with you all and hearing more stories and sharing more stories. I have a million, but keep it short here at this Japanese maple in the sunshine. All right, sending love.
So I have a couple really great memories of Austin. My first and favorite is when I was going on a hike with him and my sister and one of her friends. Her friend was getting quite obnoxious, and I could tell he was getting restless because he just wanted to have a good time in nature. So when he left to go pee, we kept walking, and he said he'd join us shortly, and he didn't, which I was not surprised. I was getting annoyed by the girl as well. And they started panicking a little bit, wondering how we were going to get back to the car, if we were lost, where Austin was. And I was assuring them, like, look, Austin would never actually leave us. He's out there. He just wanted some time alone. And I knew that in my heart, and it was true. He was there. He was following us. He just wanted to be a bit farther from the noise. And that's something I still carry with me today. I get into situations sometimes where I think, what would Austin do in this? Especially when I did the 165-mile bicycle ride from Miami to Key West, and I was getting to points in that ride where I'm like, I don't think I can do this. And then I remembered the story of how when Austin was riding in one of his, I think it was a race with his team at college, one of them had mentioned how he hung back and gave them words of encouragement to help push them forward, because it wasn't as important to him to finish at a certain point, but to be there to support his team. And so I just felt him pushing me when I was on that ride. A funny story I remember of him is when we were at Camp Palawopak and we went on a caving trip. Not everybody had flashlights for some odd reason, and I was depending on Austin's flashlight, which in retrospect was probably not the greatest idea. And while we were in the cave, Austin decided to get that whim of ADHD or whatever he had going on. And he got down on all fours, had his flashlight in one of his hands, and was running sideways like a monkey out of Wizard of Oz, saying, keep up, you gotta keep up. Just ran off into the tunnel. And I could not keep up, so I had to wait for more of the group to come up from behind before I could see again. But I could just see him running on his four legs and feet, just his arms and legs just running down that tunnel. And it's still just the most funniest thing. Today, of who I think he would be, I think he would still be that wandering adventurous spirit, but I think he probably would have settled down, and also not settled down in the sense staying in one place, but settled down and found someone to raise a family with while also going on wild adventures. And I think he would still be wandering the world, probably as a mobile family, personally. I've met a family like that before, and I was like, yeah, this is what Austin would be doing, traveling the world with his kids. So, yeah.
Hi, I have many fun memories with Austin. In fact, I remember when I went to the same high school as him, he told me I was too young as a freshman to ride with him in the car to school, so I would have to ride the bus as a freshman. But my most memorable moment with him is when I had told him I really wanted to learn how to drive a stick shift. So he took me to a parking lot in his red Jeep Wrangler and told me to get in the driver's seat and drive. And that's how I learned how to drive a stick shift. Austin still influences me today. Throughout my day, I am always thinking about him when I am in nature and going on crazy adventures, as in what would Austin do? As well as I really have gotten into yoga, and I continue to practice and think of him every time I'm in that yoga practice.
Hi, my name is Erica. I am one of Ashley Wertheiser's friends, and we've been friends so long that I remember Austin when he was probably a tween. And so I know him through Ashley, and I remember just hanging out at Ashley's house when we were in junior high, and just doing lots of good, clean fun at the house. And I can picture Austin there, and I tell this to Ashley, but he had a hamster, and it freaked me out. I was scared, but he was like holding it so gently and laughing and smiling. And I just remember him being so playful and gentle and joyful, and just really easy to be around. And that's saying something for a friend's brother at that stage of life. And just thinking about where Austin might be today, I think that he, if he were here, would be so, so proud of you, Ashley. And the family that you've built, your marriage with Josh and your precious 3 boys, I think he would be such a proud uncle and so fun-loving. I think he would come to all of their events and take them on adventures outside nature, whatever. So,
hi, it's Ashley, Austin's sister, and I'm here at Austin's tree at Swain Park, one of our local parks and one of 7 parks that have trees in his honor. They're always a great reminder of Austin's spirit for the outdoors and his love for just everything related to nature. And as I raise my kids, I try to keep that in mind and push myself out of my comfort zone and theirs, and make sure that they get that appreciation as well.
Hey there, I'm Josh Wertheiser. I am Austin's brother-in-law, married to his big sister, Ashley. That's really how I got to know Austin most, and got to really see him change from this little awkward kid to the young man that he grew up to be. I got to really see him grow from this little brother who was chasing his sister around to the goalie of his lacrosse team, where he still has records that have not been beaten for shutouts. I got to see his confidence grow. When it comes to Austin, the one thing I always remember about him is just kind of the free spirit that he was. And when he had a passion for something, he had a passion for it. I remember going on bike rides with Austin where I would be like, am I ever going to get home? And I always did. But I also remember going rock climbing at an indoor rock climbing facility with him. And basically he taught me everything I needed to know. And I felt perfectly safe with him. And the one thing I always remember him yelling at me every single time was, use those legs. So it's, I got a lot of amazing memories of Austin. I am sad that my kids, his 3 nephews, will not have had a chance to hang with him. I know he would have been the fun uncle that everybody would have really enjoyed being with. But you know, I do think of Austin always, especially when I'm out taking a hike or just walking around in nature. And those are memories that I will always cherish. So Austin, I miss you. I love you. Looking forward to see you again someday.
Well, the way that I know Austin is pretty interesting in some ways, the way that I really got to know him. I can't remember if it was when I drove him to Cleveland or picked him up and drove him from Cleveland to Cincinnati, sometime probably in January, February, many years ago. I was the family ride to or from an event for some reason, and we got stuck in a 5-hour snowstorm that made the 4-hour trip from Cleveland to Cincinnati into a 6 or 7 hour trip. And we talked for hours, and I got to know him in a way that I never would have gotten to know him otherwise. And I saw a very gentle, wise soul.
Hello, it's Gene Donatel. I worked at Sycamore Schools, and I had the unique privilege of meeting Austin clear back in elementary school. And as a little kid, he loved nature, and I was able to take kids out on activities. We went geode hunting in Indiana, and I think Austin fell in love with that. But long story short, I followed Austin all through high school, and he was a remarkable young man, a natural leader, a lover of nature, very compassionate, extremely kind, and just a lot of fun. We were kindred spirits. My favorite student of all time. So yeah, just fun stories. The Jeep, Austin had a Jeep, and I rescued him one evening. He illegally got in the back of Sharon Woods Park, got stuck, called me at around 9 or 10 o'clock at night, said, "Hey, you got to come out and save me. I'm stuck here." So he and his buddies walked out to the street, and I followed them back in the dark and took a chainsaw and rescued him off of a root ball. But that's one of many stories. Austin went camping with my family, my son Gino, down in the gorge, went jeeping. Charlie came, took the Jeep with Austin and followed around, and just many beautiful memories. So yeah, just Austin left a mark on everybody that he interacted with. His influence has been felt to this day. Love you guys. Bye.
So here's to Austin. One wonderful, funny, endearing, unforgettable young man. My student at Sycamore High School in ceramics class. Always, always making people happy to be with him.
On the night before the tornado, Austin came home at 10:15 and he said, "Mom, I'm moving in with Dad." And I said, "Austin, it's 10:15. Can't you wait until tomorrow?" He said, "No, I have to drive Michael to lacrosse practice." I didn't even react to the fact that he was moving in with his dad. I said, "Okay." So he left. And of course, as you know, at 5:08 in the morning, a F5 tornado came through and blew half of our house away with us in it, the top half. We landed on the ground and we had injuries. But Austin, had he been in his bed, his room was completely, from the carpeting up, was gone. And I had 6 more years with him, and every time I was with him, I was so grateful that he didn't die in the tornado.
On a spring Thursday night, Austin shows up at my house at 10:15 at night, which, is pretty late for him to, decide where to sleep. But something made him at that point decide he was going to sleep at my house and not stay at his mom's house, which saved his life, truly saved his life. The next morning at about 5:15 a.m., the storm warning, tornado warning, sirens are going off, my weather radio is lighting up, and I hit the weather radio and it's talking about a tornado, but my house was down in a valley next to a stream, and if there was one, it would go across the top. I didn't think so. Anyway, I just sort of went back to sleep. Well, the tornado hit right where Austin's mom's house was. It was a Category 5 tornado. It was dead center on the house just to the west of his mom's house. The couple in that house that were sleeping were blown across the street and killed. Austin's mom and her husband were blown into the front yard and injured and were in a hospital for a week, but fortunately were not killed. However, they were on the eastern side of the house, which was not dead center where the tornado had hit the house on the west side. In Austin's side of the house and Ashley's side of the house, everything was gone, down to the plywood on the floor of their bedrooms and the bathroom. The bathtub was gone. We never found the bathtub. So that's the tornado story. We could have easily lost Austin years before we actually did. And he wouldn't have had the Warren Wilson experience at all, which certainly had an impact in a lot of ways.
Hey everybody, Ben Lebold here, an old friend of Austin's from Camp Palawopeck. Sorry I couldn't make it to the gathering, but I was excited to hear that it's happening. I think of Austin all the time. A few memories come to mind. One, big ridiculous productions we would do by the campfire at camp, often using Austin's Jeep and a soundtrack to perform for campers, whatever song or production we decided to spend our time on, and we'd enlist 20 or 30 people to be a part of that production, or getting in trouble at camp and having to clean out the outhouses and making it a fun activity for campers to come along with us to prove the point that we could do it. So I think about Austin all the time. I think about trips we took together where when campers got restless, he'd shout, "Life's a journey, not a destination," or "Hydration is the key to happiness."
Hello, I am Mark Meekum, one of Austin's old friends from childhood. We were friends through middle school, through college, and I was lucky to have worked with him at the outdoor store, and he also coaxed me into delivering industrial gas around Southwest Ohio with him as a teenager. Not sure how that was legal, but we had a lot of fun doing it. The biggest influence that Austin had on my life is the value of authenticity. I saw him live life to its fullest, and that influenced me then and still to this day. Probably the greatest adventure I had with Austin was when we were 18, seniors in high school, and on spring break in Colorado. He was with one group of friends, I was with another. We decided to meet up and go on an adventure together. That entailed me borrowing somebody's car that did not have working headlights, driving to find him, pick him up in a different town. Then we drove as fast as we could, several hours, to Great Sand Dunes National Park. We explored it at the time of our lives, climbing up dunes the size of mountains, posing with bison, finding tumbleweed, and then bolting out of there as fast as we could to get back home to where we were staying before it got too dark. We did just barely make it, and we also learned that a 1990 Honda Civic can indeed go 120 miles per hour. Funniest memory I have of Austin, I mean, there's a million, but the one that stands out was our high school talent show. I don't really understand why we did it, but Austin, myself, and a few friends decided that our talent was being professional wrestlers. So we all dressed up in different costumes, had background music, had a whole stage, and hundreds of students watching and teachers. And we were all different characters. I don't know who wrote the script, but Austin was the construction worker, and everyone's goal in character was to destroy me. Apparently I was a bad guy. And I do distinctively remember Austin at one point picking me up over his head and throwing me through a table. If Austin was with us today, he would have a job to be paid to be outdoors and inspiring other people to lead a better life. In practice, I think he would own his own camp, his own adventure camp. People would know Austin because he would have the most outrageous Jeep Wrangler with a big Bernie Sanders bumper sticker on the back.
So again, my name is Matt Bradford. I live in Austin, Texas with our family, and Austin's presence is felt on a daily basis in my life, from the weird things that I joke about, or weird adventures that I take my kids on, or from the weird stories that I tell the kids about our time at camp and beyond. I feel him in wanting to go paddleboarding with the kids, or to just take them down in the creek, or to help my oldest son learn how to fish because it's suddenly something that he's really passionate about, or to take my youngest on bike rides through the woods. I can't point to one thing, but just like a way of being in the world and embracing the different moments. Like Austin frequently would say, it's the journey, it's not the destination, and that seems to encompass so much of what he left me, and I think us, with. I don't think I can point to one memory in particular. I feel so privileged to have had so many really special moments with him across a lot of different years. I remember biking with him and Charlie through the mountains of North Carolina into North Carolina, or into where he was going to school, and through just like the beautiful parkways, and through Boone, and just absolutely in awe of the surroundings, and just this really special moment where he was able to ride with Charlie and our kind of crew behind him in a giant truck with a trailer into campus, and like that's how he said hi to everybody, and I'm Austin. I remember just picking up giant Slurpees from Brown County and just bringing them back to camp and just meeting folks in the Piney Woods. I remember driving his giant truck around Bloomington and saying hi and kind of scaring the townsfolk in Bloomington and just them having no idea who Austin was. I remember the doors off the Jeep, driving down country roads and just having like summer breeze going through. Our hair and our clothes. I remember him teaching me how to wash clothes in the sink because you don't have a washer, and so just your clothes smelling like hand soap. I remember just him and Ben LeBolt tossing socks into the fire on kind of my first overnight trip at camp. I remember going to get taquitos in the middle of the night because he and Ben and other folks just had a craving for them. I feel a real warmth having these memories, but then also wanting to be that safe space that Austin provided for my own friends and my own family, and really, really wishing that my two sons and my wife had the privilege of getting to know Austin and having that presence in their life, because the adventures that he would take us on, or that we could be a part of, are just limitless. But also, I know that with Austin being gone, it's on us to try to be the change that he was in the world, and to try to be that beautiful, welcoming essence to those around us, and to try to be the caretaker and like a steward to the environment that he sought to be.
Hey guys, Brian, the stepbrother here. I'm bummed I won't be able to make it to the memorial, but I would like to at least add to the video. I'm excited that people are celebrating his transition, even after 20 years. Austin's memory still lives on. I still think about him plenty of times here and there when little things remind me of him. And a lot of little things do, because he objectively was probably one of the biggest influences of the direction my life has taken. He was always the one running around outdoors, and I was running around behind him. We'd be trying to catch carp with nets in the creek, and they'd whip us with their tails and knock us over, and thought that was the most hilarious thing ever. Or climbing huge cliffs and falling off of them, not getting hurt too much. Off-roading with the go-kart, ramping over ramps and smashing into trees. Was always fun. Mountain biking through the woods. We even did a couple races, and I remember one race where he pushed me at the beginning to try to get a head start, and then he pushed me right into the flagging, so I had to start off last because I had to get the flag out. But Camp Paul Wopek, he introduced us to that. It was amazing. It was always a good time. Austin really led a lot of the most fun trips. And he always had unique twists to them. And, he was pretty much loved by every single kid. And they always wanted to do whatever program he was doing that day. One of the bigger influences too was Hawk Circle, where he introduced, the whole family to that, the whole Tom Brown scene and survival skills stuff. And, that had the biggest impact in my life, at least. So, I'm still making a living based off of a lot of the stuff that I learned there. And even though I was there for a couple years, the first 2 weeks where Austin was actual counselor and I was a camper was still by far my most memorable time there. He always came up with really cool ideas for like the stealth games, or, just like things that would push us. Waking up at 4 a.m. to hike a mountain so we can see the sunrise, and starting our stealth games at midnight to, go through the woods and stuff in the dark. And, he became more of a mentor at that stage than anything, not just somebody that I wanted to chase after because everything they were doing seemed really exciting. There isn't a single aspect of my life that wasn't in some way influenced by him. And, if he was here with us right now, I have a feeling he'd probably be doing a lot of the same stuff. He's always trying out new things, but a lot of them were related to the outdoors, or you're starting to get into spirituality and, different angles. But he was always really active, and he was always really passionate. And I'm guessing he would probably, he'd probably be doing something outdoors related still. I can't imagine him sitting down behind a desk or anything. And I imagine he would also tell people to do what he did. And he continually followed his passions wherever it took him, not settling for mediocrity and boredom. And I appreciate everything that people are doing for the memorial, and I really wish I was going to be there. Thank you, Rachel, especially for spearheading it. And I will be with you guys in spirit, and we'll definitely be video calling. So I hope you all are well, and I appreciate everybody who's there and seeing this and showing the love for Austin.
Hey, good morning from Fort Ancient. Hey, when I think of Austin, I think of some traits that many of you know and have expressed. Definitely a friendly guy, made friends everywhere, with the campers on college, with the upper class folks at Warren Wilson, at the bike shop, everywhere he went. Really friendly guy. And the leader that the campers wanted to be with. It's like, let's sign up for what Austin's doing. So he was persuasive in that he was able to convince the campers that it's fun to dig out the outhouses. So periodically they had to dig out the outhouses, and it was an optional camp activity. So Austin had a pretty good crew of campers that were excited to do that. What an experience to camp, and I'm sure they learned a lot from that. He's also energetic, Austin, probably maybe the only, or recent history, or maybe ever, student that came as a freshman by riding the 100 miles from Boone, North Carolina, on the Blue Ridge Parkway to Warren Wilson the Saturday before he started his freshman year. I was fortunate, as many of his adventures, to be able to share that with him, as did Matt Bradford and his stepbrother. Great experience. What a way to start college. Of course, Austin told me he wasn't going to do any activities at college. He was going to focus on his school. And wouldn't you know it, as his fall freshman year went on, first it was kayaking, then not unexpected mountain biking, and very unexpected swimming, because he'd never really been a swimmer, at least competitively. But hey, to the Warren Wilson academic and athletic programs, That's the value of a small college.
One of the ways Austin really influenced me was helping me learn social skills. So when we met, I was a junior and he was a freshman, and it was the week before school started. So he hadn't even started college yet, and he had been there for a week, and he already knew more people on campus than I did. I had my friends, but I didn't really talk to other people, and I just felt a lot of social awkwardness. And Austin was friends with every friend group. I remember asking him, like, are those people really that nice? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, wow, it was mind-blowing to me. And he had so much confidence in social situations, and it forced me to have to build some of that. And I'm forever grateful, because I have to use that every day, all the time. And I had to really work on my awkwardness and get over it. And
Austin convinced us to attend the Tom Brown Jr. Standard Course in Survival in 2002, May, in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. It was a full class. People came and stayed in tents. Charlie and I slept in sleeping bags under the stars and next to the forest. There was running water close by where we could bathe on a daily basis. The instructors were very good, and they permitted us to tape each day's teachings, which I gave to Brian when we got home. Brian, my son, took this material and devoured it and went to upstate New York to Hawk Circle for a year for intensive survival skills, and now lives in Alaska teaching skills. And as a master flint knapper, he makes knives for art galleries and for shows. Austin did a wonderful thing. You rock, Austin.
When I think of Austin and my memories of him, my fondest memory of him was when he was in college in Asheville, and Larry and I went to the Biltmore for a vacation, and while we were there, we Austin came to visit us, and we had brunch with him, and we had never really spent that much time just with Austin one-on-one, and I know Larry really liked him, and I also really liked him, and I was struck by what a kind, interesting young man he was, and how he had so many different interests. And we spent a delightful time at breakfast, at talking, and he stayed for quite a while, and we talked for quite a while, and it was just his kindness came through to me, and I'll always remember that, and I think about him often.
Austin, good morning. Sunrise on the Blue Ridge, baby. You inspired me to get up here this morning. I think this is a place you would really enjoy, and I wanted to make a video for your memorial that's coming up. Can't believe it's been 20 years, and I realized I never had a chance to thank you for being such a great friend to me, and a positive influence and a good person, and I wanted to try to articulate that now the best that I can. It's a little windy up here. I'm kind of huddled behind a rock like some Himalayan yogi or something, but I think it'll be all right. Yeah, we knew each other for 4 years in college, and during that time, I would say you were kind of like a big brother and like a mentor to me, even though we were kind of the same age. And you were always talking back then, you were always telling the story back then about how your house got wrecked by a tornado in high school, and you got like blown down the block or something. I don't remember the exact story, but it was like it seemed like it was like a brush with a mortality for you. And I didn't know you beforehand, but I think you came back from that with a lot more confidence and assurance than a lot of your peers had. And you always kind of struck me as like a 30-year-old college freshman who had kind of enrolled to help guide his idiotic teenage classmates into adulthood. And you know, kind of watching you like barrel tornado like yourself through life, and kind of having your hands in all these different exploits, and you know, screaming around in your monster truck at a college for environmentalists, and you know, hitting on women in foreign countries that didn't speak any English. All that stuff kind of really inspired me to be a more confident person myself. And you can see it's still a work in progress. But yeah, and we did a lot of adventures together, man. We spent a month traveling around China, and you sort of inspired me to extend that trip. I was about to go home, and you were sort of like, Tom, dude, you know, we're in China. We're 4,000 miles away from home. When are you going to be here again? You know, you owe it to yourself to get off the beaten path, get out of your comfort zone, and do something that scares you a little bit. And I don't really think you gave me a choice. I think it was more like a direct order, like, you're not leaving the country. So we traveled. We spent a month traveling around China, and that's still one of the best experiences of my life and memories. You know, just traveling around with you and having a great time in a new place. And it wouldn't have happened if not for your inspiration. So thank you. And I also want to thank you for being such a funny guy and bringing so much joy and laughter to everybody's life. And you're kind of like you're like a buffoon in the best sense of the word. You know, all your imitations. You know, I can still remember where I was when I heard that Dale Earnhardt died. You know, that's not really funny, but kind of is. Rest in peace, Dale. And you know, just all your gesticulating wildly with your giant hairy limbs. And I remember you stood up in the cafeteria once while we were eating lunch, and you just started screaming at people, you know, you people need to start eating your apple cores. Stop wasting so much perfectly good food. And you're just screaming, man. All these people are just trying to have a nice lunch. And I remember you said the graphic designer that first illustrated the apple core should be hung because of all the food waste he created. Because you can eat the entire apple. You know, don't believe the propaganda, man. You can eat the entire thing. So that stuck with me. That was just sort of like Austin absurdity at its maximum. And I think you were a part of and loved by many different groups of people, but you didn't let any of them define you. You were always, in the end, you were just sort of your own category, and you just kind of did your own thing. And I think you knew that your time here was limited, and that you just had to go full bore through life. And I think you inspired a lot of people around you to do the same, and do a lot of adventures with you, and also on their own, inspired by you. So thank you, man. Love you, Austin, and hopefully we'll meet again. All right, later.
One memory that I have of Austin that I think about a lot, and I'm not really sure why, other than it's just kind of funny, is that one day he was at breakfast in Gladfelter, and he was never at breakfast. And it was a Friday, and I know that because they were serving biscuits and gravy. And so I'm sitting with Austin, and the night before, Johnny Cash had died. And he just kept yelling out into the dining hall randomly, "Eat some biscuits and gravy for Johnny Cash!" And then he'd shovel a few more bites in his mouth, and a couple minutes would go by, and "Eat some biscuits and gravy for Johnny Cash!" And I'm not really sure what biscuits and gravy had to do with Johnny Cash necessarily, but I just thought it was really funny at the time. And now when I see biscuits and gravy on a menu, it always makes me think, I gotta eat some for Johnny Cash. So I don't know. It's just a weird, random story about Austin, but it's one I think about probably the most.
Hey Austin, I'm in my backyard in Vermont with my cat, you might see there, and Zach's honeybees behind her, and our kid Shay is in the front yard riding his bike. I think he's about to get off training wheels. I love you, man. It's been so nice to be thinking about you with this weekend coming up. And I was going back through some old poems I wrote like probably 20 years ago now, and I was thinking about sharing one, but it turns out they're all pretty sad. But one of them reminded me of a great adventure we had together that I thought I'd share with everyone. So it must have been like 19 or 20. We took a spring break trip to Cincinnati. So it was Austin and Zach and Tom and me. And that trip was just full of a ton of adventures. We went to the camp that he grew up going to. But the one that I was thinking about was we went to a cave in Bedford, Indiana. I think it was called Dog Hill Donahue. And I remember being completely unprepared for this. Like, we showed up to a gas station parking lot that just was like this funky old gravel gas station, and there were dumpsters. And behind the dumpsters was this culvert that just came out of nowhere. And I think I was wearing jeans, and Tom, maybe you still have this, but you were wearing like a cable knit V-neck sweater. It was white with red and blue stripes, very preppy. And we just kind of rolled out of this car and into the culvert. And then all of a sudden we were in this like hours long caving adventure. And I don't think I'd ever been caving before. I knew nothing about it. And I mean, this was pretty wild. Like, we were underwater at points. I remember sometimes the passages were so tiny, like we just had to squeeze into these little snakes to slither through. And I remember just seeing like Austin's feet just like right by my head and nothing else, and thinking, oh my God, I really hope that we're gonna make it out of here. I honestly remember at one point thinking we weren't, like, and we were going to be eating mud pie dinners and taking cavern baths, and that was the end for us, you know. But after many hours, somehow Austin navigated us out of there, and we, like, lo and behold, ended up in some suburban neighborhood in Indiana. And I remember like just being dripping wet, and Tom's sweater was like sodden and muddy, and the next thing I remember was just like being in a Hardee's bathroom and like wiping mud off my face. But I don't know, it was so wild, but turned into the most bizarre, joyful adventure. And I remember really having to trust you a lot, that you'd get us out of there. And I just love you, and I trust that you made it to the other side safe and sound. Love you.
Austin was proof that you could get away with anything if you were confident about it. So an example of that is he decided he was going to do an experiment and wear the exact same thing for a whole semester. So we had like 2 or 3 pairs of jeans, but they were all the same kind of jeans. And then he had a couple of black smart wool t-shirts. And then he had a wool flannel. And he wore the exact same thing every single day for the entire semester. And I kept asking him, has anybody noticed? Does anybody say anything? And he was like, no, nobody notices. No, it's my uniform. Amazing.
Hey everyone, this video is made by Anna Alexander for Austin Wright's memorial. Some memories I have of Austin Wright was 2003 to 2005. I was on the mountain bike team with him in college, and we also went swimming in the pond with some friends in the wintertime. He was a big brother, he was kind, and he was able to guide people and set boundaries with people in a way that wasn't hurtful. So he was always like looking out for you. He also I loved going on the Appalachian Trail trip with him. We had a lot of fun.
It was our 3-week IDP, Instructor Development Practicum, where we were getting wilderness first aid training and experience just surviving in the woods, leading groups, learning about leadership practices. And, you know, it was a lot of like technical instruction stuff. We were learning how to rappel and climb mountains and all sorts of knots and stuff. But one of the highlights was actually getting to rappel down a waterfall. And it was just stunning. It was just absolutely stunning. It was the tail end of the 3-week adventure. And I just remember I was like, I got to take this moment in. Again, Zach Espelanda was just like, here we are. We're not in an office. Here we are. And it was just epic. So I remember feeling that way and starting to rappel down the waterfall. And if you remember the cartoon version of The Grinch, when he's shimmying down the chimney and his hips kind of go up and you're just watching thinking, oh, I would never want to be in that position. That's essentially what happened to me as I rappelled. My hips kind of ended up higher up than my chin, I guess. And my hair was just all this messy mat of just wilderness frizz and grease and dirt. And somehow the position I was in, part of my like big messy ponytail of my hair was trapped in this figure 8, rappel device we had. It was right connected to my harness on my hips. And the more I tried to feed the rope in, of course my whole weight is suspended. And the more I tried to feed the rappel, the more my hair got tangled up in the device. Oh yeah, the more I fed the rope into this figure 8 rappel device, the more my hair, I was just watching it just curl right around the rope. And I thought to myself, this is terrible. I was dangling in the middle of the air. There was no way to go back up, and there was clearly no way to go down without essentially like scalping myself. So my brain starts sort of thinking like, all right, there's a first aid kit down there. We're going to have to cut it. Somehow they're going to have to throw me the scissors. And I said to myself, I'm going to have to be the bald or semi-scalped girl on campus when we get back. And, spent a couple minutes thinking about what that would be like. Luckily at Warren Wilson, wouldn't be a terrible thing to, have to look like. And hair grows back, of course. And as I was dangling there, all of a sudden, I'm telling people down below and above about this predicament. And you just hear Austin's voice and he's like, no, we're not cutting Joy's hair. Absolutely not. He said something, I forgot what it was called. I never knew the technical stuff well, but he's like, I have a release hitch. I just studied. I just learned about this release like slack thing. And I'm just dangling there like, okay, well, I'm going to put my full head of hair in the trust of Austin and just let him do his experiment. And, I remember just sort of acutely aware as he was just running up the mountain, down the mountain, up the mountain, down the mountain, communicating with both, people at the top and at the bottom. And sure enough, next thing I know, there's just all this extra slack in the rope and I was able to get my hair out. And he was just so satisfied. He was just tickled pink that he was able to use this like exact new, technical rope knot release thingy-bobber. And, it was really cool. It was a really awesome thing. And it was just like, of course Austin knew that. Of course he would have saved the day and saved my hair. That was awesome.
Hi everyone. I just wanted to share some Austin memories since I can't be there this month with you all, which I'm bummed about because one of my favorite Austin things was just his community of amazing people. I would say the main thing I remember about him is just like this feeling, this joie de vivre that he exuded, that he wanted for himself, but also wanted to make sure everyone around him was feeling as well. And I have a notoriously bad memory, but two specific memories that I have are just driving in the truck and blaring Copperhead Road and speeding all over the place up at Hawk Circle. Country roads, and then like the dirt driveway going up to the farmhouse at Hawk Circle. And then weirdly, we went on like a large bike ride around upstate New York, just like during the day. And Austin kept challenging me to only do nose breathing the whole time, which I'd never really considered before. And I really couldn't breathe. But I do really try to nose breathe. And I always think of Austin when I'm biking and trying to keep the nose breathing going. So yeah, that's funny. That's my main specific memories, and then just like beautiful feeling.
But you know, getting to know Austin all throughout like freshman year, you could tell right away, you know, his writing was weak. I think he even described it as such. And, you know, he never really told us why. And, you know, just kind of the beauty that I now know as a teacher, when we see kids, you know, with needing speech services or OT, we always hope, you know, by the grade that I teach, 3rd or even 4th grade, that they've just found a way to survive socially. I sat in an IEP. I heard the speech therapist say it so nicely about one of our kiddos with a speech impediment. And she said, you know, he found a way to laugh at himself. And he says, oh, I have a British accent. And, you know, I thought that was kind of neat in a professional way, just to hear that that's just a part of special ed services, is just developing the identity and encouraging the kids to just find a way to embrace their differences or their, you know, disabilities, and make it work for them in the way they're able to laugh at themselves. So yeah, you know, when I think about that connected to Austin, I mean, we didn't talk like that in our 20s in college. I mean, that's sort of a professional teacher thought at this point. But, you know, him not sharing anything like that with me, I mean, he didn't communicate whether it was OT or just mental organization or whatever was the reason that his writing was weak. I thought he did find a way to laugh at himself, and he did it well. So yeah, you know, that was something that we were all just, at least me, I mean, maybe it was the lens of a future teacher, just sort of being acutely aware that, you know, Austin struggles with writing and just sort of organization, executive function, if you will. But he had obviously his heart and his passion to make his ideas come alive. And it was just, you know, that word infectious is Austin. You know, any idea he had, everybody just wanted to be around it. It was great, you know, especially, you know, being in your 20s in college, planning out your life. It's like, okay, this is going to be good. What's this guy going to do next? You know, what's going to be the vision? So our big class program planning and design, you know, was always like the lore class of all this hard work and all these papers you had to make to design this program. I think he was scared about it. We didn't take the class at the same time, but he was like, I think he asked me, he's like, can you be my tutor in this class? Can you help me write? I think he asked that. And I said, sure. I always wanted to be a part of his ideas and his visions. And it was great. You know, I don't even remember if like it was just as needed or just a couple times a week. I would meet up with him and we would just write it down. He would just kind of pace around and he'd be like, the vision, you know, and share all these ideas. And I would just type them up as quick as I could type. And it was great. It was really great in a lot of ways to be like that think partner, to be a part of, you know, the infectious energy and momentum. And, you know, I asked him to come to like the big presentation at the end, and I think he was embarrassed that like he didn't want me to like be there because he thought that maybe like people would know I typed it and he'd get in trouble or something. But, you know, I was just so excited to hear him speak and be a part of it, you know, and it was great. But, you know, I see that, you know, thinking about, you know, that whole experience, you know, and just who I am, just having that teacher heart, that teacher mind and perspective, and just that acute recognition in him. You know, my brother had a learning disability. He was 2 years younger than me. And he, needed help reading. I would teach him to read. I thought it was easy. And, I think just some of that dynamic existed with us too. That was just a role I was very comfortable recognizing, playing, fulfilling. And I did view him as a brother. And I think, if he was with us today, I'd want to definitely probably call him once a month, and talk to him like a brother, talk about the crazy world we're living in. And
adventures. Austin and I shared many adventures. The one that comes to mind right now is Glacier National Park. To get our permits, we had to go to the permit office early in the morning to get the permits, because we didn't have permits ahead of time. And fortunately, we were able to get the permits. However, we were required to watch a 10-minute video on backpacking with grizzly bears and black bears. So we watched that video, and in that video, it talked a lot about grizzly bears, a little bit about black bears, and it said, absolutely, walk together, talk, make noise, so the bear knows you're coming. Well, all that made a lot of sense to me. But the adventure that Austin was on was to be with grizzly bears, a bit of a risk. And once we're out on the trail, miles from anybody, he's like, Dad, I'm just gonna walk ahead and be really quiet because I really wanna have an experience with a grizzly bear. And I'm thinking, maybe that's not the best thing to do, but Austin's, okay, you're gonna do it? I'll be somewhat behind you. Hopefully the bear doesn't come from behind. And that's what we did. So he was a risk taker in many things he did. And he was very intense about what he did too. Y'all have observed that at times. And that takes me to, after our trip out west, backpacking various parts of the Pacific Northwest, a few weeks later, he was off to India on another adventure. And he started to get into yoga. And he told me he was going to really pursue yoga, not as exercise, but the meditation, medical kind of yoga that really uses your mind and that really gets you in a different place mentally. Unfortunately, he ended up, not surprisingly in a way, of Kundalini yoga. Now, Kundalini yoga, if you went to India, you'd see on a lot of walls, you'd see a circling snake with its head up, cobra snake in the strike position. And that's the symbol for Kundalini yoga. Kundalini yoga can be a good experience, or it can be a really tough experience. And you should only do it with the presence of a yoga master, not even just a yoga instructor. Unfortunately, he was with a yoga instructor, and even more unfortunately, when he got back to the US, he had no even yoga instructor on Kundalini. So he's a risk taker, right? So he's pursuing the path of Kundalini, much like being with grizzly bears, without the bear spray or any other defense, and just letting it happen. And it did happen. And unfortunately, it took Austin from us here, but he's with us all the time.
Hi, my name is Jessica. I am going to do my best not to get emotional during this. I met Austin in the fall of 2004 on our study abroad trip to India. And even though I knew him for a relatively short time, because that program is so immersive and unique, he quickly became one of my best friends. He influences my life in a lot of ways. Still, nature in general reminds me of him. Especially, I live in Washington State, and he was really excited to tell me about his trip with his dad, biking and hiking through the rainforest the previous year. So anytime I'm deep in the rainforest, I think of him. A lot of my spirituality and beliefs that sent me to India are also now infused with memories of Austin. And funnily enough, my oldest child is a January baby. He has bright eyes that remind me of Austin, and he has all the energy and ping pongs and gets excited and is all over the place and needs to be very active all the time, which also reminds me a lot of Austin. I feel like the entire time I really knew him, we were kind of in one big adventure, because we hiked the Himalayas together, Himalayas. He was excited to have me meet his yoga guru, and then he and I specifically had an astrological mentor guru that we would go see and get wisdom from. So I guess those would be some meaningful memories. It's hard to imagine where Austin would be, but I would like to think that he would be doing something that brought a lot of life and presence to the world, because that's how I always saw him. His excitement and energy would get other people excited and energized. I definitely could envision him doing something advocating or helping others. He would be physically active and not in a desk job. I don't know exactly the words of wisdom, but I think he was always growing and trying new things and excited to try new things. He was so eclectic, and even in his music tastes, it's so random, but the Indigo Girls remind me of him, and different jazz songs. And I'm just really grateful for our friendship, even in the short amount of time. And yeah, thanks so much.
So I was just looking through the starred emails in my email account, and it turns out that the oldest email happens to be a thread with Austin about going down to visit him at Warren Wilson and go hike part of the Appalachian Trail together during my senior year spring break in 2005. Sadly, I never got to do that with him, but it did inspire me to continue to grow my appreciation for nature, which was just starting to bloom at that time. I really took that to heart in life, and today I go hiking virtually every morning with my dog and do family hikes with my dog, my wife, and my kid on the weekends. And what I really find is that no matter how tired I am, how sick, how stressed, when I go on a hike, I always come back happy that I went on that hike and just feel better and more grounded and centered about everything in life. And I really do feel a connection with Austin via nature. And maybe that's part of the reason why I love it so much. And perhaps when my son Asher is quite a bit older, I will take him out to Asheville and Warren Wilson and take him and do part of the Appalachian Trail with him.
Austin's father here. Hello from Fort Ancient. Austin, friendly, persuasive, high energy, adventurous,
risk taker, friendly. Austin at Camp Paul Walpack was the counselor that the kids wanted to be with as a leader. Persuasive. At the same camp, he was able to convince kids for the optional activity that they could sign up for of digging out the outhouses. What a camp adventure that was. I'm sure actually they learned from that. High energy. Austin, entering his freshman year on his way to Warren Wilson, biked there, his idea, from Boone, North Carolina on the Blue Ridge Parkway. What a way to come to Warren Wilson, and what a great college. Adventurous. Austin and I had many memories together. One that comes to mind is backpacking in Glacier. Austin wanted to hike well ahead of me so he could encounter a grizzly bear. Exactly what the video said not to do that we had to watch to get our backcountry permits. After that trip, later that summer, Austin headed to India on a semester away. He had a personal interest in pursuing yoga as he had started to do. And we know when Austin does something, he does it full immersion, 100%. And that's what he did with yoga. When Austin returned that winter, we all noticed he was a bit different. He was thinner, and he was a little more detached. When I visited Austin a few days before he passed, he told me the issue was Kundalini Yoga, a high-risk form of yoga only to be attempted in the accompaniment of a yoga master, which he did not have. Pretty risky, much like hiking with grizzly bears. When it was relayed to me after he passed, the quote that he'd made to two staff members that were having a bit of a disagreement, it was, "Where are you investing your energy?" Thinking Austin had been thinking about that in his own world. We miss him. We miss that guy. He's with us all the time.
Also, 3 weeks before he died, he came home, and as we were saying goodbye, I said, "Austin, I feel like I'm losing you." And he said, "Mom, you know I'm not going to live a long time. I do dangerous things." Yeah, we know. We all know that. I said, "Yeah, Austin, but you wouldn't do anything to hasten it, would you?" And he said, "No, I love my family too much to do that." And so when people ask me what happened, I say he died of mental illness because he told me I would not do that. So now you know the truth. Mental illness took his life, and we all miss him, but boy, did he have a great impact on all of us.
Hello there, everybody. My name is Michael Gay, and I went to Warren Wilson College with Austin for a short time. I transferred in as a incoming junior the year of 2004, and I met Austin after he had been away on his semester abroad. We took a class with Andy Summers together on the psychology of religion, and Austin was someone that I connected with because he was burning with a lot of the deep and spiritual questions that I was burning with at the time, and was finding it hard to be in the structures of school and to like have that kind of spiritual hunger in such a structured place. And the things that unfolded would really change my life. He pulled me aside one day and was just like, "You know, Michael, you really need to read Iron John. Like, you really need to read Iron John." I'd never heard of that book. I'd never come across it before. I didn't know anything about men's work or the men's movement or mythopoetics or anything like that. And so I started reading Iron John that year. And shortly after I started reading is when Austin passed. And so actually I was finishing reading the book Iron John at the Sacred Fire that his family had up in Ohio, those 4 days together. And so I was reading this copy of Iron John, and Rachel's father, Stuart Horn, saw me reading the book and was like, hey man, if you like that book, you should come with me to Mentone, Alabama this year to the Mentone Men's Conference. And so he invited me to come. And actually in the back of this book, I sketched a tree with one of the coals from Austin's Sacred Fire, and then put the date down at the bottom that I drew that, 4/17/05. And from that interaction with Stuart, I ended up going to the Mentone Men's Conference for many years in a row, and being with Robert in the last couple of years of his teaching. I ended up working in wilderness therapy for years and becoming a psychotherapist myself, and years ago started leading men's retreats with a mentor of mine, Dewey Freeman, who's in his 70s, and my friend Trevor Boehm, and another friend, Connor Beaton. And so it was really the trajectory that Austin set me on, reading these books and connecting me to that community that has become a huge part of my life work. In fact, this past April, I led another 5-day men's retreat in Colorado with my friend Trevor and Dewey. And the beginning day of that 5-day retreat, that Monday, was the anniversary of Austin's passing, his 20-year date of marking his passing. And I told his story to the men's group coming in, and how his life affected me and set me on this trajectory that I'm still walking 20 years later, leading these retreats now with mentors and incorporating work on the land and somatic group work and wilderness therapy and rites of passage and the creativity and relationship with earth and land. And so Austin walks with me very closely in terms of deeply affecting my life trajectory, even though our time knowing each other was very short and limited. More than most people in my life really changed the trajectory. And so I really feel like so much of his spirit carries on in that way. And I feel him often and know that that meeting was meant to change my life. Looking back on it, it's like out of a Hemingway novel or something, like that I would meet Stuart at Austin's memorial fire, and that he would invite me to these conferences with Robert. And that started me writing poetry myself and being involved with these teachers and this community that's nourished me and allowed me also to give back for the last 20 years. So my gratitude and my love to all of you as Austin's loved ones and friends and family, and know that he's still deeply affecting the trajectory of my life and blessing a lot of people with his care and his attunement and his generosity. And
hey, Tim Manny here, Warren Wilson friend and roommate of Austin, and I've been thinking for a while, somewhat unsuccessfully, about what to say about Austin and a message to share with people. And today I was driving and I had this memory of a time that I was watching these videos. I'd gotten them out of the library at Warren Wilson, and they are a series of videos of interviews with Joseph Campbell and Bill Moyers. It's called The Power of Myth. And each interview, Bill Moyers, the interviewer, he'd ask this question at the end, and it would lead Joseph Campbell into saying something really profound and reflective on kind of the nature of reality, or maybe something we might call truth. And usually they would, he would say something, and at the end, and you just kind of sit there thinking about, something that just really hit the spot. And for the last couple minutes of it, Austin had walked into the common room where I was watching these with a friend, and he just kind of walked in quietly and he was standing behind the couch where we were set up watching, and he just kind of perched back there, didn't say anything. And then sure enough, here comes the end, and Joseph Campbell drops his little truth bomb there. And you know, my reaction would tend to be sit in silence and just kind of ponder what's been said. But without a blink, as soon as the interview ended, Austin just said, "Bam, JC, bam." And it just was the sweetest and kind of the most joyful way, I think, to embrace those kinds of big truths about the world. And I just think about how that kind of energy is what I would like to bring to more situations in life. And I think that's probably true for most of us. And it's just one of the sweet things about Austin. I can't be at the gathering that's coming up, and there is no place that I would rather be that weekend. I had some previous things going on, but I will be thinking about everyone, thinking about Austin, and yeah, looking forward to seeing this video come together and hearing other people's memories. Yeah.
My experience of Austin was always his exuberance, his authenticity, his passion, and then also how deeply he was loved by the people he touched. And when Austin died, when we were in college, the way we were brought together to celebrate him was so beautiful, and makes me think about how even in death, we so deeply impact people and continue to impact people in profound ways. Austin was a connector, and his passing brought people together in such deep and meaningful ways. And yeah, it really helped shape me in being more present and being more prioritizing what really matters. And yeah, I remember after I learned about his passing, seeing Lev, a friend at Warren Wilson, and we saw each other from across the grass outside of Gladfelter, and we wanted to run to each other to support each other, but we knew the landscaping crew managed that grass and had just reseeded it, and we ran around the outside so that we didn't run on the grass. And it was just such a funny moment of like sharing and connecting over our care of this human, and also respecting the place and the people in the larger community. I think something that would have been so right for Austin, you know, taking care of his people, but also the place that he was a part of.
Hey, it's Lev. I am making this video for Austin from a hotel because I'm at a work conference, and it feels like an odd environment to be thinking about Austin, and all I can actually think about is how if we were here with Bike Team, there would just be like absolutely disgusting sweating clothes hanging off of every possible surface, and like dirty bike shorts inside out everywhere. So a couple of Austin memories and things that I'm really appreciative of are first, that he is the reason why I got into mountain biking at Warren Wilson. And we were on the swim team together and had some fun adventures there. And then I really wanted a bicycle to ride around campus, like to get to class and the library. And he suggested that I should join the mountain bike team because they had loaner bikes. And that was my foray into this like totally amazing, life-changing team experience, working really, really hard at something that I was pretty terrible at, but having so much fun and really challenging myself. And I really credit Austin in a lot of ways, both for that initial launch into doing something that was so different for me, but just really shaping the way that I felt about taking those risks and pushing myself physically in that way and working really hard at something that I, even with all that hard work, was like still not good at, but still could have a lot of fun. And I just have so much appreciation to Austin for getting me into that. And the next memory that I will share is Austin's just amazing ability to like pull you into the present and to reframe things. And very specifically, there was one day when we were, I don't know, supposed to go on a hike or a walk or something. And I was really down. I think I was like recently post breakup and just was like really bummed and not feeling very social. And he just like would not take no for an answer. And we ended up running around on Wilson trails and Dogwood on this like completely pitch black new moon night, and just like running at full speed and somehow like not crashing into things. And he had such an incredible ability to like take you out of whatever one space was and be like, okay, what's the space that you want to be in? Where are you investing your energy, or where you need to be? And then the last thing that I want to share is that the loss of Austin, that in Austin's death, he taught me how to grieve and what it meant to lose someone that I really loved and cared about, and what it meant to lose someone as a young person. And I wish upon everything that he had not taught me that. And there have been multiple times in my life when, as I've processed other losses, like just that experience comes through. And about a year ago, we lost a young person in our family, a 16-year-old. And I sincerely felt with every conversation that I had with my kids, including my younger son, who is incredibly close to him, I felt like Austin was sitting there with me through those conversations. And it was like through that experience that I felt like I could tell Riley that it was eventually, like, that he would get through this and that it would be okay. So I wish to everything that I hadn't learned that from Austin, and I'm also grateful for the ways that he has continued to show up. So I love you, Austin. I still think about you a lot. I'm really grateful for your friendship. And I love that, like, you still get to be young and like frozen in that era of your life, because it was a beautiful one, and you were amazing. And thank you so much to everybody putting this together. And I just send such incredible love and admiration to all of the folks who are closest to Austin and his family and closest loved ones, just continuing to live with this loss. So thank you, and send in lots of love.
So Austin, I couldn't think of a better place to come and do a video for you than your bench along the bike trail that David and I come out almost every Sunday when it's beautiful out and spend our time on the bike trail. And when we pass your bench, we always think about your quote that life's a journey, not a destination. And we're trying to live that way, and to always live in the moment, and to do the things that we want to do now and not wait. So Austin, we remember you every time we come by this bench.
Hello folks, my name's Jack Blosser and this is Nico. And I was the site manager at Fort Ancient Earthworks and Nature Preserve for 32 years. And I remember the first day I met Charlie and Dee. They told me the situation that had happened and they'd like to use the site for a celebration. And so we did it. And out of that developed a very good friendship with Charlie and Dee. And whether you realize it or not, Austin has affected people's life even after his life was taken. So it's a very special thing that I never did get to know Austin personally, but I got to know him a lot through Charlie and Dee. And when we had the ceremony, the funeral at the Fort Ancient, Dee bought pizza for everybody, hundreds of people. And I sat at a table with 7 people from 3 different countries around the world.
Austin was all about life's a journey, not a destination. This is his mom, Lori Arshansky, and I wanted to tell you about Austin. It was great to be his mother. I loved every minute. And one of the things that he was big on was pushing the envelope of your life. And it kind of encouraged me to do things I would not have ordinarily done, like zip lining 30 feet up in New Zealand and swearing at him all the way as I am running the track, or not the track, the line. It was pretty scary. And laughing, and him laughing, and it was great. And calling his name at the top of Machu Picchu and also on top of the Sydney Bridge. Those were things that I did to honor him and push my envelope as he would have instructed.
Hey, Austin. This is Nana Nancy, and I love your mother. And because I love your mother, I love you. And wherever you are, I know you're surrounded by love. And I'm not woo, but I had surgery, and your mom was with me, and I could feel your presence in the room, because love is like that. It's just a circle of love, and you are beloved by everybody wherever you are. Shine your light down on us, beautiful boy.
I think of Austin like a shooting star, and I saw him shine so brightly in so many people's lives. His passion was contagious, and his ability to bring out magic in nature was amazing. I'm so grateful for all the moments and all the impacts he's had on me.
Austin and his influence. Many of you know and have shared to some degree how Austin had influenced you. Let me share a bit of mine. Obviously, there was a lot before he passed. I was so fortunate to have a son that engaged with me even when he was 23 years old. He didn't step away when he became a teenager. That was such a blessing. I'll talk more on that later. You know, we did all kinds of things: backpacking, cycling, skiing, sailing, hiking, looking at issues and talking about things. We talked all the way for 24 hours, pretty much, with a little bit of sleep in between, driving the gear in the pickup truck to do some bear tracking in Idaho. We were like 24 hours to get out there to the outdoor show. And then, you know, on to the bear tracking, wolf tracking actually is what it was. So Austin certainly influenced a lot there. And then, you know, after his past, it stays with you. And the lessons, you know, that we've learned, it's like its own kind of college education. You know, it stays with you, and you use that for the rest of your life. In the one that I want to talk about, which certainly was a blessing to me and to others, but to me, a big blessing was that I referenced earlier. Austin has grew up, stayed with me. We did so many things together. Sometimes, you know, when kids, you know, become 13, 14, you know, they become very independent. He certainly was an independent guy, but he was an independent guy that kept me as part of his world. And we did things. And he came to me to do things, art and mentoring. He said, Dad, I did this in Michigan. I think you'd really like it. I'll do it again in Vermont, which we did. And interestingly, that's where we did the Sacred Fire. Life success, he did as a kid. His mom, I thought that would be good, and he did it. And later he said, Dad, I think you'd really like to do Life Success. It's a great program on better life balance. And we did that together. And that was amazing. And I never would have done that if Austin hadn't asked me and done it with me. If he had just said, Dad, go do this, I probably wouldn't have done it, actually. But, you know, when your son says, let's do something together, you do that. And that's the point I'm getting to right now, is a lot of y'all are parents now, or you have brothers and sisters that have kids, or you know kids, or as we know, there's kids out there. Engage with those kids, do things with those kids. I know a lot of you are, and that's such a gift, not only to them, but it's a gift to you. So focus on that gift. Focus on helping young folks. We're doing it now with Team VMG, which is get kids outdoors through sailing and fishing. You can look it up, teamvmg.org. But it's a give back for me. So you're at the point of your life where you need to start thinking about giving back. And that sort of circles back to the last thought of, as we all know, where are you investing your energy? That Austin, sitting in the back of a van, hearing two staff members in the front of the van, spending a lot of energy on something that didn't mean a lot. We do that, don't we? Certainly to them in their day-to-day life or future life, it was strictly, you know, a lot of energy not going in a very productive way or helpful way. And he made that quote, which is a Austin quote. Where are you investing your energy? Wasn't a quote he picked up along the way. He just was drawn to do that. And that actually occurred after he got back from India. So he had certainly some deeper thoughts than we might have thought at that time. So I'll leave you with that. Be with the young. Give back to the young. People gave to you when you were young. And where are you investing your energy?
When I think about Austin asking us where we're investing our energy, I know that he would have been on the forefront of people imploring us to put our devices down, get out of the vortex that is social media, and spend more time connecting with each other, and especially reconnecting with nature. I think he always epitomized that wonderful expression of how you spend your minutes is how you spend your hours, is how you spend your days, is how you spend your years, is how you spend your life. And so he did not waste time in connecting, in adventuring, in being introspective and wondering, what are we doing with our lives? And I carry that with me all the time. I think about it quite a lot, and I am trying to make more choices about how I spend my minutes, because I know that ultimately that's how I'm spending my life. It's wonderful to carry that with me. And I can just hear him whispering in my ear to put down the damn phone.
Where I'm investing my energy, it's probably a good idea to preface that, because what I'm doing with my energy these days at almost 43 is very exhaustively raising children. It's just me and the kids and my sweet little kitty back there, my Missy. And yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of energy, a lot of transitions.
Mom.
Thanks, buddy.
Mom.
It's a lot of intense concentration and
Get out of there,
intervals of communication and interaction. So there's a lot of satisfaction in that. And of course, also a lot of overwhelm. But it's awesome. So we'll see how much, how many times they interrupt me during this interview, during this video making. Here's a question for the kids. So Austin, my friend, he believed in like your energy. Where do you spend your energy? How do you spend your days? And where do you put all your energy? So you go first, Cameron.
I spend my energy ice skating, playing hockey, soccer, making friends outside, playing outside, basketball, soccer. I think I already said soccer, football.
Good job, buddy.
And bye-bye. Love you.
To say, my name's Callie.
My name's Callie, and I like playing restaurant. I have the menus and everything to play it. So I'm happy that you're here. Love you. Bye.
Good job, baby.
If you've ever seen the movie Big Fish, that really reminds me of Austin and how is that he brought magic into nature, into so many parts of life. He brought big magic. And I feel so lucky that I got to see him influence so many people, and his influence on me was so powerful. And to see that influence live on is amazing. And he's still with us in so many wonderful ways.
What would Austin be up to today? I think he would be hiking up a mountain somewhere, or he would be right here in Fort Ancient with all the people that care about him. I think he would be appreciating nature and the beauty around him, and I think he would be sharing his adventures and stories and would be laughing with his family and especially his nephews who would have adored him. I think 20 years is unbelievable that it's been 20 years, but Austin's memory lives on with everyone who is gathered today.
I know if he was here today, he would have been involved in a bunch of crazy expeditions. He probably would have climbed up Mount Everest by this point, but he'd also be bringing joy to the world and trying to help people make sense of a world that isn't always joyful. But Austin always brought positive energy to whatever experience, and he'd be an important voice with us today. And I know he's still with many of us as we all engage in our own journeys.
See, if Austin was with us today, one thing I imagine he would love is the show Naked and Afraid. I have to admit, I love it. I get a lot of entertainment from it, and I could just imagine him starring in the show, multiple episodes, multiple ecosystems, like Africa. I could see him wanting to take that on. I just remember when he went with Zach Espelanda to, where was it? It was I think somewhere in New York for a summer, and they came back and they were making all kinds of, fire starters, natural fire, with magnesium sparks. There was always a lot of good demos on the campus in our outdoor leadership classes. So yeah, I could see him just loving the show. I could see him watching the show, critiquing everybody on the show. And he'd probably have a somewhat viral presence as a character on the show. Probably all the fan groups would be talking about this guy, Austin, and he'd probably have some type of call that he makes, in the woods. But yeah, I could see him probably excelling in any of the parts of that show, like hunting a snake, eating it, building a shelter, building a fire, and just thriving. It would actually be really awesome. So yeah, you'd love it.
The best quote that I found that I feel encapsulates my memory of Austin is from the Buddhist philosopher dude, Thich Nhat Hanh, who said, "The present moment is filled with joy and happiness. If you are attentive, you will see it.
As I prepared to film this video, I found myself having so much to say, yet almost unable to put it into words. Kind of reminiscent of Austin and I waiting till the last minute to start studying for a final exam, buying poster board at 11 p.m. the night before a project is due. I am filming this the night before I'm supposed to send it to Rachel. Not because I forgot, not because this hasn't been important to me, but because I've really struggled to capture all that Austin has meant to me, all that I've taken from our friendship, all that I continue to hold in my heart. But I'm gonna give it a try anyway, or at least I'm gonna talk a little bit about what's on my mind today. Austin was a once-in-a-lifetime friend. I miss him every day. I continue to feel and continue to be drawn to his spirit of adventure. I continue to try to take the risk and enjoy the ride like he seemed always able to do simultaneously. Late last year, I lost my mom, and at her funeral, I read a quote from the Russian novel, Dr. Zhivago. In this scene, where the quote comes from, the main character is trying to comfort his mother-in-law who's pretty critically ill. He's talking a lot about this idea of a soul, of immortality, but his meditations on the idea of a soul always come to mind when I'm thinking about Austin and his legacy and his impact. So part of the quotes say, "You have always been in others, and you'll remain in others. This will be you, the you that enters the future and becomes a part of it." So while so much of the early years kind of felt the pain of his departure, I've been blessed lately to be able to think about his legacy and what lives on in me and what continues to live on in his loved ones, and how we in our lives will continue to bring that forward, to grow it as our lives live on in others' lives even after we're gone here. I also feel blessed to be part of this beloved community of people impacted by Austin who continue to bring his legacy forward. I remain really grateful for my friend, for the memories I was able to make. I think since becoming a parent myself, I've become really aware of how important those early formative friendships are, how precious and how fleeting, but how beautiful and special, and how long you hold on to those. So I just feel really grateful that I was able to have and to hold on to a friendship like that.